Hello, welcome to 30-Minute Mindfulness. Today I thought we would talk about self-acceptance. Self-acceptance it accepts every aspect of our life. So when we think about self-acceptance, to the degree that we accept ourselves is the degree to which we can develop wholeness. In other words, the place where we limit our self-acceptance is also where we limit our ability to be whole. So self-acceptance is another way of saying allowing, creating wholeness. Those are synonyms. It is accepting all of who we are without judgment, qualification, condition, or exceptions. It's unconditional. Self-acceptance reflects feelings of worth. Self-acceptance knows who we are and knows where our healthy limits lie. We practice self-acceptance when we forgive ourselves. Self-acceptance reflects being our own best friend. So it's only through self-acceptance that we begin to heal all the pain and shame and all that stuff we have inside that keeps us stuck in certain ways. Carl Jung says, we cannot change anything unless we accept it. Self-acceptance has nothing to do with the appraisal of how we perform, how we think we do. It has nothing to do with that. Our performance doesn't change our self-acceptance. That would be conditional. So again, self-acceptance is non-conditional. It's unconditional. Self-acceptance and self-improvement are two different things. Self-acceptance isn't about fixing anything in ourselves. It's the part that allows us to see clearly what is. It's the part that fosters wholeness. It allows us to see those pieces in us that need improvement, that need healing. And it's the precursor for healing. We have to accept those pieces before we can heal them. So with self-acceptance, we're affirming who we are. It would sound like, yeah, this too, this too. When we define our worth to be a result of bettering ourselves, we make self-acceptance conditional. Again, when I have to improve myself in order to be worthy, I'm making it conditional. That's not self-acceptance. I'm never going to feel good. I'm never going to feel good enough if my positive self-regard depends on me constantly bettering who I am, bettering myself. Self-acceptance says, I'm okay with who I am, without qualifications or conditions. It's not that we ignore or deny our faults, but they're not used in determining our worth or acceptability. Those are different things. So when we have a healthy self-acceptance, we can look at our faults with a gentle awareness. It might sound something like this. Oh, look at that. Geez, I'm feeling jealousy again. I'm feeling jealousy. I wonder what's going on for me that I feel insecure. That's interesting. What do I need to fill up inside of me so that I feel like I'm enough? Where is it that I feel deficient inside? What's missing? So do you see how that conversation with myself allows my fault? It allows that jealousy. It allows that thing that I don't want to look at without condemning me as bad or not worthy. It looks at that yucky feeling of jealousy with self-compassion, with acceptance, with understanding. Yes, you know what? That's not pretty, but that's part of being human. That's part of the journey. We've all experienced it, and we probably will again. Self-acceptance is looking at my own stuff, that jealousy, whatever arises, that anger, whatever it is, and being my own best friend. And saying, oh yeah, yes, I see how difficult that would be. Self-acceptance doesn't mean we lose our motivation to enrich our lives. In fact, self-acceptance allows us to enrich our lives more completely because we're not abusing ourselves along the way. In other words, when we become self-critical for whatever reason, when we become self-critical about improving ourselves or about being a failure in some way, we're critical of ourselves because of a behavior. We're bringing up awareness about what we want to heal by using a sledgehammer to smash it down. So when we're critical about something that we don't find awesome in our behavior, and we come down with a sledgehammer, that's not going to heal it. That's not going to make things change. We are doing the same things to ourselves as the people who gave us the message that we weren't worthy in the first place. We're doing the same thing. We're giving ourselves the message that we're not worthy when we come with that self-critical sledgehammer approach. So self-acceptance stops that cycle from repeating. It stops the abusive, self-critical thinking. Self-acceptance is changing how we look at ourselves. There's no striving in self-acceptance. There's only being. So when our self-regard comes from striving or performing well, the message we're sending ourselves is that we're only as good as our last achievement. So it's this insatiable cycle of doing and creating and being better. Fostering self-acceptance means we develop more self-compassion. We see the difficulty in our lives, and we see that we did the very best with what we had at the time. And we pardon ourselves. We let go of the fault and blame, and we stop paying penance. It's done. It's through self-compassion that we learn to like ourselves more. We find more humor in our follies, and we view ourselves as deserving of love and respect, no matter what. It's through our willingness to confront what we previously found so difficult about ourselves to accept that we begin to see clearly. And the knots that bind us to depression and anxiety and addiction and all those other things begin to unravel. Self-acceptance and self-compassion both allow us to focus much more on our positive aspects than the negative. We can forgive ourselves for our faults and let go of the need of approval for others. We have, without question, made mistakes. All of us have. That's a human condition. That's life. None of us are perfect. So beating ourselves up for not being perfect is in some way another form of self-harm. We are who we are is not equal to our mistakes. Our mistakes are the thing that give us the opportunity to learn. Mistakes make learning possible. Going forward, we certainly take responsibility for the ways we've hurt or mistreated others. Absolutely. But we do so from a compassionate and forgiving perspective. We accept the difficulties and realize we did the best we could with what we had at that time. The road to healing asks of us to ask ourselves specifically and clearly what it is that we don't accept about ourselves. And we ask ourselves to show up as our own best friend. We bring compassion and understanding to each aspect of our self-rejection and denial. When we do that, we begin to dissolve the disproportionate feelings of guilt and shame that are based on these unrealistic appraisals of what we're supposed to be. Robert Holden writes in his book, Happiness Now, happiness and self-acceptance go hand in hand. In fact, your level of self-acceptance determines your level of happiness. The more self-acceptance you have, the more happiness you'll allow yourself to accept, to receive, and enjoy. In other words, you enjoy as much happiness as you believe you're worthy of. So self-acceptance is the antidote to self-doubt, self-criticism, and negative self-talk. So with that, I invite you to close your eyes and find a posture that is comfortable, something that's upright but not rigid. And let's meditate for about 20 minutes. So find that breath, that center point, that anchor. And just let that steady flow of your breath rising and falling be your gateway to the present moment. Be your anchor to the right now. Just let the stillness arise. And as we sit in stillness, let's walk toward that edge of where we find comfort and where we begin to feel the uncomfortable, knowing that uncomfortable place is where we unravel the knots that keep us stuck in some ways. What is it that you don't accept about yourself? What's difficult to accept? What's difficult to admit that you do, or that's part of your repertoire? What's difficult? Maybe it's difficult to look at that anger that we carry sometimes. Maybe those feelings of shame are the thing that's especially difficult. That feeling of not being worthy or not being enough. Maybe it's that never-ending chase to just do this one thing. This one thing is going to make it okay. It's going to make me enough. But there's always one more thing. Maybe it's difficult to look at your part, your responsibility. Maybe as we look at our responsibility, we have to see where we're not showing up as our best self, and that can be hard. Where does that self-rejection or that denial of that part of you live in your body? Where do you feel it? Maybe in your tummy, or maybe it's tightness in your shoulders or your neck. Maybe it's heat in your hands, or sweaty. As we look at these very sticky parts, these very difficult things to look at, is it possible, just in this moment, just right now, to show up as your own best friend? Is it possible to bring compassion and understanding to these aspects that are difficult to look at? Is it possible to just say, yeah, that's hard. That feels yucky. I can see why that would be so difficult. can see why your default setting is to run from that. Can you say those things to yourself? Can you acknowledge the challenge that you face when looking these difficult emotions in the eye? Just hold this self-rejection and this denial just in these moments with a warm, compassionate understanding. Just ease. Ah, yes, I see you. Yeah, that's hard. Can you sit with that for just a few minutes? What does that compassionate embrace feel like? That gentle warmth of acceptance. What does it feel like? Is it possible to soften it a little more, to let your guard down a little bit more? Just take one more step towards self-acceptance. Acknowledge your humanity. Now imagine a warm, cozy blanket wrapped around your shoulders, bringing you a sense of peace and ease. Or maybe you imagine your body engulfed in beautiful white light. Whatever image works for you. Just in this moment, feel that peace, that ease, and that safety. That cozy, warm feeling. And let it all go. Let go of all the stories, all the shoulds. Just be here with that warm, cozy blanket wrapped around your shoulders. Totally safe, totally cared for, and totally at ease, just for this one moment. And honor the courage that you have, that you've demonstrated right now, as we all look deeper into those aspects of who we are, as we face those things that seem scary. Just acknowledge your courage. And when you're ready, please open your eyes. Thank you for being here today. Christy, I'm glad that was meaningful for you. I'll see you guys tomorrow.